Then it's when I first took the flight from Nairobi to the US. There was only a few cases of the virus, but then that time it was only in China, I think. It hadn't really gone outside the country. So that time, so I took the plane to the US, and then I stayed there for about 2.5 months. Then when I took the flight back to Nairobi, that time now I think it had gotten to some parts of Europe, and there were a few cases in the US. So I wasn't so scared about it. I wasn't so nervous, but I had surgical masks with me, and I had everything, the sanitizers. So when I got on the airport, I was the only one actually in the airport in Cleveland with the masks on, and everyone was looking at me thinking I'm crazy. So anyway, so when I landed in London, that's when now I became a bit worried, because then we were using so many trays. So many people were using so many trays. The security was touching everyone's stuff. But, and I still had the sanitizers and the masks on, but that's when we went through the security and we took off our masks. And then we got into the plane, and then that's when we came to Nairobi. So I think I may have contracted it either in London or on the plane back to Nairobi.
So earlier you said that you had the masks, you had the mask on, and you also had the gloves. So in London, were there many people who were also wearing the masks?
No, that time there was nobody wearing the masks. There was no one.
So in the plane coming to Nairobi from London, right? Were you thinking about this virus? Were you thinking about your surrounding? What was going on through your mind?
The first instance, I was very concerned about my health when I got into the plane. But so that's on the plane, I did not sanitize at first. So I sat on it, and then 30 minutes into the flight, that's when I started sanitizing the area around me.
So from London to Nairobi, when you got to JKIA, what happened? What sort of procedure did you go through as you're coming into the country?
When we got into the country, the first thing they did was screening. Everybody was screened, all the passengers. So the temperature was checked, and the temperature was very fine, including the temperature of the passengers next to me. They were just okay.
So everything was okay as you went through JKIA, so you went home?
Yeah, I went home, and when I think it was around March 7th, that's when I had the first cough. It just started as a tickle in the throat. So then it turned into a cough about 3 hours later, and then the cough came with just a mild headache that went away after 1 day.
At first, when you started coughing, did you think that, well, this is it, or did you think this is just a common flu?
No, the first cough, I just thought this is a normal flu. Then someone joked about it and said maybe it's corona. Then we laughed about it. We said no, it can't be common. My temperature was just fine. There was no fever. So that's the next day is when I became a little concerned, and I called the people who were seated next to me on the plane, and I asked them how they were feeling. They said, one of them said they were having a cough and a fever.
And were these Kenyans?
Yeah, one of them was a Kenyan.
So you exchanged contacts when you landed, you were checking up on each other?
Yeah, we were checking up on each other. So it helped that I had their contacts, because when they told me we are also having a cough, that's when it came to my mind, and I said, this may be the virus. So that's when I now just took a time. I took 1 day to watch my body and to watch how I was responding to it.
So at this time, were you worried about the people you're interacting with at home?
I was very worried because I'd interacted with people in the house. So that was a concern for me. And we talked about it with the people I was living with. I told them there's a chance that this can be the virus. And if it comes that way, I would like all of you to just come out and also tell the ministry that you had been in contact with me. We had that talk with them before I went to the hospital.
So second day, you're still coughing. Then what did you do?
On the second day, there was no cough. The cough had gone away completely. There was just a small headache, and then it went away. So by the time I was presenting myself to the hospital, I didn't have any symptoms. It was just, I told them I was having a cough yesterday, and it was, the cough was a little too consistent. It was coming too many times in 1 hour.
Who did you call?
I called Mbagathi Hospital, and then I also called the toll-free number. Yeah.
So they picked you from the house, or you drove yourself there?
The toll-free number wasn't, I don't know, I think it was busy that time, and the numbers from Mbagathi Hospital were also busy. So that's when now I decided to take a ride to Mbagathi Hospital, and they were very, very helpful when I got there. They were very concerned, and they took me seriously, because if they hadn't taken me seriously, I probably would have also just gone back to the house.
So the process when you reported and they treated you nicely, like you've just said, what was the process like for you, and up to the point when now they told you you're positive? And did they tell you, or did they put it in writing? How did they disclose this to you?
When I got to Mbagathi, I asked for the isolation center, because I'd read on the news, I think there was an article about there being an isolation center in Mbagathi Hospital back when I was in the US. So when I got here, the first thing I asked my friends, do you know any isolation center? And then we Googled, we got the toll-free number, and we got the information. So when I went to Mbagathi, I asked them, where is the isolation center? And then they pointed me in that direction. So I went there and presented myself. And the nurse there called the Kenyatta National Hospital. And then Kenyatta came for me. And then that's when I got to Kenyatta, and I got the test done the next day.
So the test came out positive after how many days when you were there at Kenyatta?
I think, I'm not too sure, but I think I may have spent 2 days in Kenyatta. It was 1 day. Yeah, it was 1 day. Then the tests were taken, and the test came back after 1 day. Yeah.
How did they break the news to you?
I didn't get the news. I got it from the media when it was announced. So that's when somebody called me and told me, Ivy, I think that's you. And I said, no, it's not me. It can't be me.
So the doctors had not told you that you're positive then? You got to learn this through the media?
Yeah. But I think, the doctors were trying so hard to do so many things at once. They were very busy. There's the protocol, trying to organize so many things. So I think that may have been part of it. And I don't really blame them. I know there was so much confusion, but they had my best interest in their hearts. They really had my best interest, because after that they called me and they comforted me, and they were very, very nice. They kept calling me, and they made sure that I had everything I needed.
So is that the point when you knew that you are patient number one?
Yeah, I got it from the media. That's when now I kind of joined the dots together, because there was that, it was that, the media actually said I was 27 years old. But then I was like, no, but I'm 26, that's not me. but I connected the dots, because everything fits. Young, jovial, in high spirits, she's eating and she's even talking to us. That's what the CS said.
And you knew that's you?
And I knew that was me, because I'm always in high spirits and I'm jovial.
You still are, which is really, really great. I mean, coming out of this and speaking the way you're speaking is really, really inspiring. But at that moment, take us to that moment when now the thought settled in your mind that it's me and I'm positive. What was going through your mind?
I was crying. I was crying and wailing. I was just, I was so shocked. And plus, I knew I was the only patient, so that was a little scary for me. And my parents called me, my sisters and my brothers, and they were all trying to comfort me because I was breaking down. I was in tears, and I couldn't believe now. I was just wondering, how did I catch it? How do I have it when I'm not even showing the severe symptoms for this? It's just very mild. So, yeah, I was very, very scared. And I cried, which is normal. I think everyone will have that at some point.
What will be your message to a lot of young people who think that they can't get this? Because there's a lot of talk within the estates, within the country, and even other places that young people can't get this. You're only 26 years old, but you had it. And then others would assume that I just have maybe just a small cough. I don't have the full-blown symptoms and I can't get it. What would be a message to them?
My message would be, regardless of how you feel, if it's just a cough, I'm not a medical expert, but I know mine came as a tickle in the throat, and then a cough and a headache, and that was just about it. Maybe a runny nose for 5 minutes, and that was it. So if you suspect that you have it, you should just self-isolate. That's the first thing, and call the Ministry of Health, because they've given us all the guidelines. Call the Ministry of Health and make sure they know it. They will come for you and you identify. You should, as a responsible Kenyan, don't go around spreading it. When you suspect you know it, just self-isolate first thing and call the Ministry of Health. They will come for you and they will give you all the assistance you need. If you need any information from them, they will give it to you. And you should be ready to make sacrifices, such as being quarantined for any number of days. You should just be comfortable with that, because this is something that we all have to make sacrifices as a country. We'll all have to be painfully uncomfortable for a limited period of time, so that we can save the future, and so that we can save the people who are, there are people who are vulnerable. And it would be very, very selfish if you put yourself in a place where you're spreading it to other people. It's very selfish.
So Ivy, how many days were you in quarantine as you're going through the treatment?
I've been in quarantine for 22 days now. Yeah.
And through that period, you were giving out contacts of the people that you had interacted with, and the government was following up on them?
Yeah, the government was following up on those people. And I was also asking those people, are you being followed up on? They were saying, yes, we are being called every day. Every day. So those people were quarantined, and then after being quarantined for a number of days, they were tested, and then after being negative, they were released, but then still made to quarantine, where they went to for another 14 days.
I mean, the president has really commended you for cooperating with the government and saying that you are giving out these contacts and you are responding very well and very positively, and you look like a very, very positive person. Was there a point when you were feeling, as patient number one, perhaps you're responsible for infecting other people? Did these thoughts cross your mind?
First of all, I didn't bring this on myself. That's the first thing I understood. It could have happened. It was a matter of when, not if. So I knew that was just something that I had to take a step to, I didn't put the blame on myself. I didn't put it on anyone else or where I got it from. That's something I did not do. But then that's why I took the step to make sure that I was isolated and treated, so that it would spread that and suppress it for any other person who I had maybe been in contact with. And thankfully, because of that wise decision that I made, there was only one person whom contracted it from me. So had I not come forward, it could have been so many people, hundreds, and probably even to vulnerable people. So that's something you have to think about when you have this virus. I
mean, Ivy, you're very bubbly. You're just, a bubble of, energy. What were you doing to keep you, staying positive while you're in quarantine? What were you doing?
Sometimes it can be a little overwhelming, because, during the day, you don't know. Sometimes it can be a little overwhelming. But then for me, I was talking to the doctors, so they were advising me, you can do this, you can listen to music, you can also get audiobooks, and try to stay away from negative information. There's a lot of information going out there on social media sites from sources that are not even credible. They are not scientific research journals or anything. That's the information you're supposed to stay away from. Keep positive and talk to people who uplift your spirits.
Is this the first day that now you're being released to go home?
Yeah, we were just discharged maybe a few hours ago. Then that's when we came here. So
how are you feeling?
I haven't gone home yet.
But how are you feeling, the thought of just going back home from all this?
I'm excited, because the last time I left, the last time I was outside, everything was normal, right? So everything was normal. People were going to work, to school and everything. So now it's things have changed from what I've seen on the media, so I'm excited to go and outside.
You can't wait to go back to your normal.
Yeah, I miss the sun so much. Yeah, we were able to go out to the sun when we were in quarantine, but then there's that feeling of being able to really go out. And
Well, Brian is a bit overwhelmed at this point in time, and just talk about the issue of stigma, because there are a number of stories that are going out there of people who are being suspected of having symptoms of COVID-19, and there's the whole issue of stigma around them. How will you address that? What would you want to say now that you're going back to the community?
yeah. First off, I'd like to say I'm not afraid of stigma, because I'm a person. First of all, I'm a person who doesn't stigmatize other people regardless. So I'm not afraid of the stigma, because I know there are some people who might be scared. People are afraid of what they don't know. So the more information you get about this thing, the more you learn that people can actually get treated for this and managed very well, then the stigma will go down. But there shouldn't be any stigma, because this is something that is treatable, right? Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Ivy, for your time. Hope for the best. A bright future awaits you out there. And you're a very exciting person, very bubbly, very jovial. Stay positive, and the whole world is embracing you. And we are all inspired by your story. As young as you are, you've really got a lot going on for you out there. Thank you very much for your time.